The stars were a lousy audience. Commander Elias Vance muttered as his ship, iron sworn, spiraled through the Perseus Rift. The once pristine craft was now little more than a burning wreck, and his survival instincts kicked in as the fiery vortex of hyperspace toward his ship's hull. Another day, another near-death experience, he quipped, throwing a half-hearted salute to the cosmos. But as the rift's violent grip sent his ship careening toward an unknown planet, Elias had no idea that his crash landing would be the least of his problems. A world of alien beauty, cosmic dangers, and unexpected connections awaited him, along with a mysterious woman who claimed his fate had already been written in the stars. Strap in for a journey beyond the stars, where survival is just the beginning. Subscribe to the channel and join Elias as he uncovers secrets that could change the galaxy. The stars were a lousy audience, Commander Elias Vance decided, as a ship iron-sworn screamed through the Perseus Rift like a drunk comet. Space wasn't the serene void poets raved about. It was a cosmic highway full of potholes and bad jazz, and Elias was the guy stuck driving the busted rig. He leaned back in the pilot's chair, boots propped on the console, smirking at the chaos unfolding on his screens. Another day, another near-death experience, he quipped, sipping from a flask that definitely didn't contain coffee. Who needs a vacation when you've got this? The iron-sworn shuddered, alarms blaring like a toddler throwing a tantrum. His AI, a glitchy relic he'd nicknamed Polypositive, chirped through the noise. Every ending is a new beginning, Commander. Elias groaned, rolling his eyes. Polly, if I wanted motivational posters, I'd crash into a gift shop. Shut up and tell me what's exploding. The answer came too late. A hyperspace rupture tore through the rift, swallowing the ship in a blaze of violet light. Elias gripped the controls, muttering, "Well, this is going to leave a mark." The next thing he knew, he was plummeting through an alien sky, the iron sworn reduced to flaming confetti. His HUD flickered, uselessly flashing a sad face emoji instead of oxygen levels. "Perfect," he deadpanned. "I'm about to die, and my helmet's got the emotional range of a chatbot." The ground rushed up, a blur of purple grass and turquoise clouds, and Elias braced for impact, muttering, "At least I'll go out with style." He didn't die, not quite. Consciousness returned in fits and starts. His body sprawled in a warm, shimmering pool on a planet that looked like it had been painted by a drunk impressionist. Purple grass tickled his neck, and the air tasted like mint gum left out too long. Elias blinked up at a sky of liquid blue, streaked with green auroras that pulsed like a living thing. Stranded, injured, and pretty sure the local wildlife's judging me, he muttered, propping himself on one elbow. Just another Monday. Elias wasn't just lost in space. He was lost in himself. 3 years ago, a botched mission had cost him his team, including Lena, the one person who'd ever gotten past his armor, literal and otherwise. She'd stayed behind to overload a reactor, saving his sorry ass while he watched her light fade. The guilt clung to him like engine grease, no matter how many quips he threw at it. He flew solo now, cracking jokes to drown out the silence, but it was never enough. The pool he'd landed in was no ordinary water. It sparkled, each ripple catching starlight like 1,000 tiny diamonds. Elias peeled off his cracked armor, wincing as it tugged at old scars crisscrossing his chest, a roadmap of bad decisions. His body, lean and battle-hardened, glistened under the alien sun, and he couldn't help but smirk. "Still got it," he said, flexing for an imaginary crowd. "Eat your heart out, galaxy." The water moved like it had a mind of its own, sliding over his skin in slow, deliberate waves, warm and teasing, like a lover's touch he hadn't felt in years. Elias shivered, the sensation both foreign and electric, stirring something deep he'd buried under sarcasm. "Okay, planet," he murmured, voice low and rough. "Buy me dinner first." He sank deeper, letting the water cradle him, its currents tracing his shoulders, his chest, igniting a heat he didn't expect. Steam curled upward, and in it, a fleeting vision formed, a woman, her eyes blazing with stars, hair flowing like liquid silk. His breath caught, heart pounding as if she'd reached out and grazed his soul. "Whoa, easy there, cosmic siren," he whispered, half joking, half mesmerized. The vision faded, but the water's caress lingered, leaving his skin tingling, marked by something he couldn't name. He stood, water streaming down his frame, and muttered, "Universe, you're playing dirty." A rustle snapped him out of it. A small creature, like an octopus with glowing eyes, darted through the grass, giggling in a way that was definitely not cute. "Oh, great," Elias said, narrowing his eyes. "A squid with a sense of humor. I'm calling you Shade, and I already don't trust you." The thing skittered closer, its eyes glinting with mischief, and Elias felt a prickle of unease, like it knew more about this place than he did. He checked his HUD, hoping for a miracle. Instead, it flickered with static, then showed her again. The woman from the steam, her face sharp for a split second before dissolving. "Okay, that's not a glitch," he said, rubbing his temples. "Either I'm losing it, or this planet's got a crush on me." His clothes clung to him, soaked and heavy, but his body thrummed with strange energy, like Zephra had woken something inside him. Elias staggered out of the pool, boots squelching, and scanned the horizon. The auroras danced, whispering sounds he couldn't catch, like an ancient song just out of reach. "Welcome to the Lost and Found Club, Elias," he said, forcing a grin. "Let's see what kind of trouble you've landed in this time." The sky watched, silent and vast, and for all his bravado, he felt it. Zephra was waiting, and it wasn't going to let him walk away. Elias Vance trudged through the alien jungle, his boots sinking into the spongy, purple grass of Zephra, each step a reminder he was a long way from a cold beer and a decent Wi-Fi signal. The auroras overhead pulsed like a cosmic rave, casting shadows that danced to a beat he couldn't hear. "If this planet's got a tourism board," he muttered, swatting at a glowing bug the size of his fist, "they owe me a refund for the crash landing." His HUD flickered, still taunting him with that sad face emoji, and he sighed. "Polly, you're fired. Worst AI wingman ever." A rustle in the trees stopped him cold. He froze, hand twitching toward the blaster that wasn't there, lost in the wreck, naturally. "Okay, universe," he whispered. "If this is where I get eaten by a glittery space bear, I'm leaving a 1-star review." But what emerged wasn't a bear. It was her, Charelle, Queen of Zephra, stepping from the forest like she'd been sculpted from starlight and dreams. Her cloak flowed like liquid storm clouds, clinging to her frame in ways that made Elias's brain short-circuit. Her skin shimmered, not glowing but catching the light in a secret dance, and her silver eyes, brimming with constellations, sized him up with a curiosity that felt personal. "You have arrived," she said, her voice a melody that hit Elias like a shot of whiskey, smooth, warm, and a little disorienting. His translator stuttered, as if it, too, was flustered. He cleared his throat, flashing his best smirk. "Yeah, arrived with a side of turbulence. You should see the in-flight movie, 0 stars." Charelle's lips curved, a smile that said she was in on the joke, but playing a deeper game. "I am Charelle, Queen of Zephra," she continued, stepping closer. "You were expected." Elias raised an eyebrow, leaning against a tree that pulsed faintly under his touch. "Expected, huh? Look, I might have drooled on your sacred moss back there, so if that's a prophecy violation, my bad." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a meteor shower, and gestured for him to follow. "Come, Elias Vance. We have much to discuss." The jungle parted for her, vines curling back like obedient pets, and Elias trailed behind, trying not to stare the way her cloak hugged her curves. "So," he said, dodging a branch that seemed to wink at him, "this Zephra gig. Nice place, weird vibes. What's the catch?" She glanced back, her eyes glinting. "The catch, as you say, is survival." They reached a palace that wasn't built. It was alive. Walls of crystal and stone breathed, rippling with faint light, and floating orbs cast a glow that shifted with Elias's mood, dimming as his unease grew. "Okay, fancy," he said, whistling. "This place makes my old apartment look like a cardboard box." The walls thrummed, almost comforting, and he shot them a look. "Don't get too cozy, buddy. I'm not signing a lease." Inside, Charelle led him to a chamber where the air hummed with energy. But the welcome wasn't all warm fuzzies. A towering figure, Kale, or General, glared at Elias like he'd just tracked mud on the royal carpet. "This is your stellar bond?" Kale spat, his voice dripping with disdain. "A weakling from a backwater planet, unfit for our prophecy?" Elias grinned, unfazed. "Ouch, big guy. Tell me how you really feel. Want a hug to work it out?" Charelle raised a hand, silencing Kale's scowl. He is the one foretold," she said, though her tone held a flicker of doubt, a shadow Elias caught like a glitch in the Matrix. She turned to him, her presence commanding yet vulnerable. 3,000 years ago, our seer spoke of the stellar bond, a soul from beyond the stars who would wield the harmonizer to defeat the hollow star, a force that consumes worlds. Zephra's fate rests with you." Elias snorted, crossing his arms. "Prophecies? Sorry, I'm more of a wing it and hope kind of guy. Stellar bond sounds like the hero. Me? I'm the sidekick who survives the sequel." Charelle's eyes softened, but Kale growled. "He mocks our sacred duty." Elias shot back. "Hey, I mock everything. Keeps me sane." To prove her point, Charelle produced a small crystal. Echo shard, its surface swirling with light. "This will guide you to the harmonizer," she said, "but only if you are true to yourself." Elias took it, their fingers brushing in. Her touch was fire and silk, sending a jolt through him that made his pulse race like a runaway reactor. Charelle stood close, too close, her cloak slipping just enough to reveal a shoulder that gleamed like polished pearl under the orb's glow. Her hair grazed his cheek, carrying a scent of night-blooming flowers and cosmic winds, so intoxicating he forgot how to blink. "The shard knows your heart," she murmured, her voice low, her starry eyes locking onto his with an intensity that felt like a dare. Elias swallowed, his usual quips faltering. "My heart's not great with secrets," he managed, voice rougher than he meant. Her lips curved, a knowing smile, and as she stepped back, her gaze lingered, peeling back layers he'd spent years hiding, like she saw the man beneath the sarcasm and liked what she found. Before he could recover, Shade, the creepy squid thing, scuttled into the room, dropping a metallic device that clattered across the floor. Kale pounced, snatching it up. "Proof," he roared. "This human is a spy." Elias raised his hands, smirking. "Whoa, Sherlock, that's not mine. I'm more of a lose-my-keys guy, not secret gadget guy." Kale's eyes burned, but Charelle hesitated, her trust wavering. Desperate to clear his name, Elias held out the echo shard. "Touch it," he said. "If I'm lying, it'll fry me, right?" Charelle's fingers met his, and the shard flared, pulling them into a vision. Zephra crumbling, cities dissolving into ash, light fading to black. Elias grabbed her hand in the dreamscape, his voice steady. "I won't let this happen. I swear." They snapped back to reality, hands still clasped, breathing hard. Kale fell silent, his glare now uncertain, but Elias felt Charelle's warmth linger, a tether he didn't expect. She led him to a dining hall, where glowing fruits pulsed and roots hummed soft tunes. Elias bit into a talking berry, yelping as it squeaked, rude. Charelle's laugh was music, and for a moment, he forgot the prophecy, the danger, just her smile, real and unguarded. "Your trouble," he said, grinning. She tilted her head. "And you, Elias, are just beginning to understand." Elias Vance stood on the boarding ramp of the Whisper, Zephra's sleekest ship, which looked like it had been carved from a giant seashell and sprinkled with stardust. He adjusted his battered jacket, smirking at the crew assembled before him. "All right, team," he said, clapping his hands. "Let's make this field trip to Crazy Town quick and painless." Spoiler, it won't be. The alien landscape of Verilon loomed beyond, a nightmare carnival of floating forests, rivers defying gravity, and clouds that flickered like a disco ball having an existential crisis. Elias raised an eyebrow. Mother Nature's on a bender out there. His squad was an eclectic bunch. Valen, a warrior with arms like tree trunks, sharpened her blade with a scowl that could curdle milk. Sa, the time engineer, fiddled with a gadget that beeped ominously, muttering equations under her breath. Nor, the guide, had eyes that glowed faintly, scanning the horizon like a human GPS. And then there was Biscuit, a fluffy creature resembling a cross between a Pomeranian and a Tribble, yipping happily at Elias's boots. "You're the only one I trust, Furball," Elias whispered, scratching its head. Charelle stood nearby, her starry gaze unreadable, while Kale, the general who'd made hating Elias's cardio, loomed like a storm cloud with a bad attitude. "Verulin's been warped by the hollow star," Charelle explained, her voice steady but heavy. "Its corruption bends reality. We must find the harmonizer before it's too late." Elias nodded, twirling the echo shard in his pocket. "Piece of cake. Step 1. Don't get eaten by a time-warped shrub. Step 2. Profit." Kale snorted. "Your humor will not save us, human." Elias grinned. "Stick around, big guy. My charm's a slow burn." The whisper touched down in Verilon, and Elias stepped on a soil that pulsed underfoot, like the ground was debating whether to swallow him whole. Trees floated above, their roots dangling like jellyfish tendrils, and waterfalls flowed upward, splashing into clouds that hummed faintly. "Okay, that's new," Elias muttered when a patch of dirt vanished for a split second, nearly dropping him into a chasm. He caught himself dusting off his knees. This place needs a safety inspector and a stiff drink. Verilon wasn't just weird, it was a temporal maze. Hills spun slowly in the air, and the sky flickered between day and night like a broken hollow screen. Sa's scans confirmed the harmonizer lay deep in the temporal maze, a labyrinth where time played hopscotch with reality. "1 minute here could be an hour," she warned, "or send you back to yesterday." Elias whistled. "Great. I always wanted to relive my awkward teens." Trouble hit fast. A shadow moved, too fast, too wrong, and Elias's gut screamed danger. "Heads up," he shouted, but it was too late. Chrono-wraiths, spectral entities born from the hollow star, materialized like smoke with teeth. Their forms shimmered, half seen, and their whispers clawed at the mind. One locked onto Elias, and the world dissolved. He was back in the starlight dawn. 3 years ago, alarms blaring as the reactor went critical. Lena stood before him, her face pale, screaming, "You left me. You let me die." Her eyes burned with betrayal, and Elias's chest tightened, guilt flooding him like acid. "No," he gasped. "I tried," but the memory twisted, and he saw himself running, abandoning her to the flames. Pain tore through him, threatening to break him. The echo shard flared in his pocket, its warmth cutting through the lie. "She chose to stay," it whispered. "She saved you." Elias clenched his fists, forcing the vision back. "Nice try, Ghosty," he growled, snapping free. He stumbled, gasping, to find the team scattered, fighting their own demons. Valen roared, slashing at nothing. Saw clutch her head, muttering nonsense. Only Charelle stood firm, her eyes blazing as she drove a wraith back with a pulse of light. "Everyone focus," Elias yelled, grabbing Sa's arm. "It's not real." His voice pulled them together, but Kale was gone, vanished in the chaos. "Perfect," Elias muttered. "Our grumpy generals playing hide-and-seek." Nora pointed to tracks, Kale's, leading deeper into Verilon. Biscuit yipped, sniffing the air, and Elias sighed. "Lead on, Fluffball." The trail took them to a clearing where time looped like a bad remix. Elias noticed the same tree splintering, the same cloud bursting over and over. "We're stuck," he said, kicking a rock that reappeared seconds later. Groundhog Day Alien Edition. Shade, the squid thing that refused to leave him alone, skittered forward, its giggles echoing oddly. It tapped a stone, and the loop stuttered, revealing Kale, his face pale, eyes darting. "He's trapping us," Sal whispered. "He's scared." Elias approached, hands raised. "Kale, buddy, talk to me. What's the deal?" Kale's voice shook. "The harmonizer will fail, human. Zephra will fall, and I won't let you doom us." Elias stepped closer, dodging a swing from Kale's blade. I get it, man. Fear's a hell of a drug. But listen, I lost someone too. Lena. She died so I could live, and I'm still figuring out how to carry that. Hiding in this loop won't save anyone. Kale faltered, and Elias pressed on. Let me try. For Zephra. Kale lowered his weapon, nodding reluctantly. Do not fail, he muttered. The loop broke, and the team pressed into the maze, its walls shifting, whispering dangers. They needed a breather, and found one by a glowing pool, its surface dancing with liquid light. Charelle knelt by the water, peeling off her outer cloak to cool down, revealing shoulders that shimmered like polished opal under the pool's radiance. Elias, pretending to study Saw's map, stole a glance, his breath catching at the elegant curve of her frame, soft yet commanding. She caught his stare, a playful glint in her starry eyes. Planning to help? Or just enjoying the view? She teased, her voice like velvet. Elias smirked, stepping closer, his fingers brushing her arm as he tied a strip of cloth over a small scratch. Her skin was warm, impossibly smooth, sending a spark through him that made his pulse race. Her breath grazed his cheek, sweet like star fruit, and she murmured, "You're distracting me, Elias." He pulled back, muttering, "Just doing my job, Your Majesty." But her gaze, deep, knowing, lit a fire he couldn't ignore, like they were teetering on the edge of something unstoppable. The moment passed, but Charelle's presence lingered, a quiet heat that both steadied and rattled him. The maze grew crueler, walls closed in, wraiths howled, and Elias led the way, the shard pulsing in his pocket. Lena's face flashed in his mind, not as a ghost, but a reminder. Keep going. He wasn't sure if he was the stellar bond or just a guy in over his head, but damn if he'd let Zephra down. "All right, team," he said, grinning despite the odds. "Let's find this harmonizer and kick time's ass." The temporal maze spat Elias and his team out at the foot of Verulin's central tower, a monolith of stone and crystal that pulsed like a beating heart. Its walls groaned under the weight of time itself, crimson light seeping from cracks like blood from a wound. The hollow star's influence was everywhere, twisting the air into a haze that whispered failure. Elias tilted his head back, squinting at the tower's peak, where storm clouds churned in a vortex of red and black. "Well," he drawled, wiping sweat from his brow, "if that's not the universe's way of saying turn back, I don't know what is." He turned to the team, Charelle, her starry eyes fierce with resolve, Valen, gripping her blade like it owed her money, Sa, clutching her temporal scanner, Nor, murmuring to Biscuit, who yipped at shadows, and Kale, whose scowl could have curdled the galaxy. "All right, gang," Elias said, clapping his hands. "Time to storm the castle, save the world, and maybe grab a burger after." "Who's with me?" Valen grunted. Sa nodded nervously, but Kale's glare was a warning shot. "Your flippancy will doom us, human," he growled. Elias grinned, unfazed. "Keep up, big guy. My flippancy's got a winning streak." The tower's entrance loomed, guarded by the sentient gate, a massive slab of gears and glowing eyes that spun like judgmental satellites. It hummed, a low, bone-rattling drone, and Elias felt the echo shard in his pocket vibrate in response. "That's our bouncer," he muttered, stepping forward. "Hope it liked my ID." The gate's eyes locked onto him, and a voice, cold, ancient, echoed in his skull. Temporal authentication required. Prove your worth, or be unmade. Reality fractured. Elias was a kid again, building model ships in a cluttered garage, dreaming of stars while his dad yelled about wasted time. Then a cadet, flunking flight sims, instructors sneering as he crashed virtual cruisers. Then a lone astronaut, clutching a photo of Earth, staring into the void after Lena's death, wondering why he kept going. The memories stung, each one a jab at his doubts, but the gate wasn't done. It showed him a future, standing beside Charelle, Zephra crumbling, flames licking the sky as she reached for him, her face etched with despair. "No," Elias whispered, fists clenched. "That's not happening." The gate's voice pressed harder. "To pass, you must surrender what binds you." Elias's heart sank. He saw Lena, her smile, her sacrifice, the moment she'd pushed him into the escape pod as the reactor exploded. She was his anchor, his guilt, the reason he fought. You want her memory? He snarled at the gate. You're a lousy therapist. But the truth hit him. Holding on to her pain was chaining him to the past, not Zephra's future. Charelle stepped beside him, her hand grazing his arm, warm and steady. I know loss, she said softly, her voice trembling. I watched a city die, thousands fading because I couldn't save them. It haunts me, Elias, but also drives me. Her starry eyes held his, raw and open, and for once, Elias didn't have a quip. He nodded, squeezing her hand. All right, Gate, he said, voice low. Take Lena's face, her voice, but you don't get her promise. She told me to live right. That's mine. The gate hummed, satisfied, and slid open, revealing a spiraling path to the harmonizer. The chamber at the tower's heart was a cathedral of light and shadow, the harmonizer floating at its center, a sphere of interlocking rings, spinning in dimensions Elias couldn't name. Its glow flickered, tainted by red veins of the hollow star. That's our ticket, Elias said, but before he could move, Cale shoved past, his eyes glassy, unnatural. No, Cale roared, slamming his fist into a control crystal. Sparks flew, and the harmonizer wailed, red lights surging. It will destroy us. Zephra will burn. Cale, what the hell? Elias dodged a swinging arm, grabbing Charelle as the floor shook. He's been corrupted, she gasped. The hollow stars in his mind. Valen tackled Cale, pinning him, but the harmonizer's rings spun wildly, cracks spreading across its surface. Sa shouted, It's overloading. We've got minutes. Elias cursed, pulling the echo shard from his pocket. It pulsed, bright as a star, and he knew what he had to do. He sprinted to the harmonizer, climbing its base as energy scorched his skin. Come on, Shiny, he muttered, slotting the shard into a glowing socket. The chamber screamed, light blinding, and the shard shattered, its fragments dissolving into the machine. Elias staggered, a void opening in his chest. Zephra's whispers, the planet's heartbeat gone. He cut himself off to save it. The harmonizer stabilized, white light flooding outward, purging the red taint. The tower quieted, and outside, Verulin's sky softened into a serene galaxy of stars. Elias slumped against the harmonizer, catching his breath as the light faded. Charelle was there, her face inches from his, her starry eyes now brimming with something deeper. Relief, gratitude, need. You did it, she whispered, her voice a caress. You saved us, Elias. His hands found hers, rough against her silk, and he pulled her close, no quips left to hide behind. Their lips met, slow at first, a tender exploration, then fierce, like they were pouring every fear, every hope, into each other. The kiss deepened, and they sank to the warm stone floor, the harmonizer's glow pulsing like a heartbeat around them. Their fingers intertwined, breaths mingling, and in that moment, they were no longer queen and wanderer, but two souls merging, their connection a quiet supernova, fierce yet sacred. The light dimmed, as if shielding their union, and when it returned, they lay side by side, hands clasped, the sky above a tapestry of stars bearing witness to something eternal. Elias sat up, still holding her hand, and smirked faintly. Guess I'm not just a sidekick anymore. Charelle laughed, soft and real, and for the first time, he felt whole, not fixed but enough. Cale, freed from the hollow star's grip, knelt in shame, but Elias waved it off. We're cool, big guy. Just don't make a habit. The team gathered, battered but alive, and Elias looked at the harmonizer, its rings now still. Zephra was safe, but the cost, Lena's memory, the shard's loss, hung heavy. Worth it, he murmured, and meant it. Elias Vance leaned against a balcony railing in E-Vase, Zephra's glittering capital, the city sprawling below like a canvas of light and song. The air carried a hum, not mechanical but alive, trees whispering, streets pulsing with color. He sipped a glowing drink that tasted like pineapple and promises, smirking at the view. Not bad for a guy who crash-landed a week ago, he muttered, twirling a twig between his fingers. Eat your heart out, Earth. But the quip felt hollow, a reflex to mask the ache in his chest. Saving Zephra had cost him the echo shard's warmth, Lena's memory, and a piece of himself he couldn't name. The hollow star was gone, its crimson taint purged from Verlin skies. Fields sparkled again, their grasses swaying to melodies only Zephra understood. Yet Elias felt like a radio tuned to static. You'd think saving a planet would come with a parade, he said to no one, tossing the twig over the edge. Or at least a decent burger. His HUD, now fixed, blinked silently. No sad emojis, no ghostly visions of Lena. Just him, alone with his thoughts, which was never a great neighborhood to wander. Footsteps broke his reverie. Charelle, her cloak catching the starlight like a second sky. She joined him, silent at first, her presence a quiet anchor. You're brooding, she said, her voice teasing but gentle. Elias chuckled, rubbing his neck. Nah, just practicing for the grumpy hero audition. Nailed it yet? Her starry eyes crinkled, but they held a weight, a shared understanding of battles won and scars earned. You've given us hope, Elias, she said. That's no small thing. He shrugged, leaning closer. Hope's great, but I'm still waiting for the part where I don't feel like I left half my soul in that tower. The words slipped out, rawer than he meant, and Charelle's hand found his, her touch grounding him. Come with me, she said, leading him from the balcony, through Evace's glowing streets, to a hidden grove where the air shimmered with possibility. The grove was a secret Zephra kept close, trees born from the shattered echo shard, their branches glowing like captured comets, humming softly as Elias approached. He froze, feeling a faint echo of the planet's voice, not gone but transformed. They grew from your sacrifice, Charelle said, her voice soft as moonlight. Zephra remembers you, Elias. So do I. He swallowed, his usual quips failing. Yeah, well, he managed. I'm not used to planets getting all sentimental on me. He ran a hand over a tree, its light warming his skin, and for the first time since the harmonizer, the static in his chest quieted. Guess I'm stuck here, huh? He said, half joking. Charelle's smile was a promise. Only if you choose to be. Days blurred into weeks, and Elias found a rhythm. He stayed in Evace, not as a savior but a guy figuring it out. He taught Zephra's kids about the universe, spinning tales of human chaos, how they'd eat sandwiches in meteor showers or invent sports involving exploding drones. Back home, he told a wide-eyed crowd, we once raced lawnmowers in zero-G. Total disaster, total fun. The kids laughed, their voices filling a void he hadn't realized was there. You're all right. Many aliens, he said, ruffling one's hair. Don't tell anyone I'm soft. Kale, the once hostile general, sought redemption guarding the harmonizer, etching Elias's story into Zephra's archives, a warrior's apology. Didn't think you had it in you, big guy, Elias told him, tossing a mock salute. Kale grunted, but his eyes held respect. Even Shade, the squid thing, stuck around, curling Elias's feet like a pet he'd never admit to liking. You're still creepy, Elias muttered, but he scratched its head, earning a contented chirp. His bond with Charelle deepened. Not just friendship, but something unspoken, a future waiting to unfold. One night, they stood on a cliff overlooking Evace, the sky a tapestry of stars. Elias traced a new constellation, its shape hauntingly familiar. Lena, smiling down, her light no longer a wound but a blessing. Guess you're still watching, huh? He whispered, throat tight. Charelle stood close, her warmth a quiet fire. You thought you were lost, she said, her voice wrapping around him. Elias turned, meeting her gaze, those starry eyes brighter than any sky. Yeah, well, he said, his smirk softer now. Turns out I was just taking the scenic route home. Her hand brushed his, and he held it, no quips needed. The stars above burned fierce, and for once, Elias didn't feel like he was running from anything, just standing exactly where he belonged.